let's deal with people that are stalling. So there's a couple ways that people can stall in close guard. One is if they just grab your belt and then they're not even really trying to get out of the guard, or maybe you're just good at hiking your hips up and so they can't do the white belt knee in the butt push out and all that stuff. So you're here and you can't really do too much. You feel like you can't pull to break this. My trick is to kind of violently lift my hips and drop them. And as they drop, my wrist can always slide underneath, because if I just try to push my hand in, it doesn't happen. But as I move my hips, I can always get my hand underneath. And then we can try to shoot our arm as deep as we can. And the deeper you can get your arm, actually, the more effective this grip break is. You can do it from here at the wrist, but it's really effective to shoot your arm really deep. And now you can just flare your elbows and you can look to start breaking grips. And now we're knee pulling and chasing the back and doing whatever we want from there. So if it's the belt that you're having an issue with, it's aggressive hips. And on the drop, you force your arm underneath. You lock a figure four and you grab their sleeve, and now you're here, and now you could pull to that deep overhook. And now we're looking for chokes, triangles, all that jazz. So if it's the belt that's giving you the issues, if it's the belt, it's the hips, it's sliding underneath, and it's doing that figure four grip break. If it's the armpits, which I know this is the one that a lot of people have problems with, there's a couple things I'm thinking about here. One is it a thumb up grip? Or is it like the four fingers on top? And the reason for that is when it's four fingers, most of the time, I can take my own hands and I can stretch my entire torso and almost like make like a sweat starfish on the mat, where I'm kind of taking my own arms overhead. And as I do that, now I just pull one and I have access to the outside of their pinky, and I can lift my hips up and I can start chasing across. If they're really if they're actually like squeezing in my armpits and you feel like you can't remove the grip, my coach used to do this, and I'm gonna try to do it kind of slowly. And that is, you basically take your own forearm over their wrist and you gable grip, and you try to force this like aggressive style wrist lock. Now, I will say this, it is super, super low percentage, but what it's high percentage at is making people stop doing this. So as I take my forearm just over the bend of where their wrist bends, I take the forearm over and I make a gable grip, and then I start doing this. They'll pull their hand and their elbow back, and right when they do, we pull our knees to our chest, and now we're shifting off, and now we're starting to attack because we're chest to chest with our partner. So I'm just trying to force their hands out of my armpit. And one of the ways is by taking my forearm over, and then I'm like doing a crunch, and I'm bringing my head over the wrist. So as his hands are in my armpit, and I can't pull this out because he's squeezing really tight, I can't remove this. I'm here and I'm crunching towards it, and he moved his elbow, and now look, we have underhooks, we have chest to chest, we have all that jazz. If he does the opposite and he actually goes thumb up, there's actually something that I really like to do where I'll pull their forearm in to my armpit and I'll grab their elbow, and then I'll start lifting my hip up. So what's happening here is, as I grab the forearm, I'm actually jamming his thumb like even further into my armpit. So while he has this grip, I jam it, I put my hand behind, I put my foot on the hip, and then I catch the shoulder, and I'm squeezing this really, really tight because he's already got his hand there. So when I squeeze really tight, I'm kind of trapping it, but he could pull his hand out right now because nothing's stopping his elbow from pulling backwards. So I kind of like double reinforce it until I can get my foot and my thigh here. And then I put my foot on this hip and I lift my hips up. And now I can push on the shoulder, and you actually have this really shallow arm bar. It's very similar, like anytime I come off to the side and in close guard, I can catch his thumb, catch behind the elbow, foot on the hip, and I could just hip up, or I could catch the shoulder and I can just force my hips to be what hyperextends his elbow. So we can kind of punish people for doing the thumb up grip. So now I'm here, I'm catching, and now I'm immediately just going for this arm bar. So you can really punish people for just trying to hold here. So whether it's they have the four fingers on top and I'm coming over and crushing, maybe I can lift and pull it out of the armpit. Or people have their thumb here and I can really try to pull their arm into my armpit, and then I'm lifting my hip up and really trying to force my thigh to be what has that hyperextension right there on the edge of that elbow. So if that's what you guys are struggling with, is stalling from those types of positions like close guard because people are stiff arming, I'm always trying to drag it across or kind of aggressively jam it in so that I can look for other attacks. The only other thing where I used to get stuck at where people would stall would be from positions like a butterfly guard, because from positions like seated butterfly, I want overhooks and underhooks, and he's on his knees. Go back to your knees. He's on his knees. I want to get under the body or over, and people are always like, yeah, they're just like pushing and they're never letting me enter. What I'll do is actually something that Nikki Rod does, where I'll pull my heel to my butt and I'll come up and I'll basically push on one of the shoulders and try to wrestle people over. Even if it fails, it's okay. I can come back and now I have my underhook on the far side. So if because I'm like reaching in like a baby going for a hug and he can just bat my hands away, and it's super simple, you can basically just take like a stiff arm grip and come up and act like you're gonna wrestle on people, and it gives you your opportunity to sit back. And now I'm going for butterfly stuff, same thing. And then same thing with if I was standing and somebody's being very deflective, I'll intentionally kind of like try to wrestle, like go for a shot, and it always leads to underhooks and overhooks, and then we can play from there. So if you haven't struggled with those positions, the answer is basically try to force a wrestling interaction, and off that interaction, we can find over and underhooks, and then we can do jiu-jitsu. Thanks, guys.